Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in to Sisters Unbothered podcast. I am your host, Coach Nikki Cates, and today we are diving into something that's been on my heart, the sacred art of unmasking through boundaries. Last year, I did do an episode under strategic transformations with Nikki, specific to balancing boundaries. But today we're going to go deeper and we're going to be talking about those masks that we've been wearing to please everyone else while our own needs are going unmet. If that's you, this episode is for you. Let's talk about why setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-stewardship and it's revolutionary. Let's get started. Hey y'all, welcome back. Coach Nikki here, and we are going to dive right on in. So, this week has been one of those weeks where life has reminded me exactly why we need to talk about what we're diving into today. When we enter into a space, whether that's time, whether that's presence, whatever it is, when we enter into a space or a place, if we enter without an intention, we are entering into chaos. Why do I say that? Because without intention, there is no, let's say, schematic or blueprint for how we are going to interact in that space, how are we going to utilize that space, because we all know that time and energy are limited for every single one of us. So how we use it, how we spend it that we cannot get back is up to us. And that only happens when we are intentional. So I've been out networking all week, which is amazing for business, considering that I am no longer full-time employed. But I've been connecting with incredible women. But guess what happened? My content schedule nearly fell apart. Like, I am recording the podcast the day that it is releasing, y'all, because I didn't set proper boundaries around my own time and energy. So today we're talking about something that hits different in 2025 than it did last year. We're going to talk about unmasking through boundaries, not just the balancing beam of using boundaries, but unmasking through them. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about it. Let me set the stage first, though. Last year, we talked about boundaries using that metaphor of a gymnast on a balancing beam, poised, intentional, graceful, even when she wobbles. If you read my blog post this week, I used a picture of our amazing, beautiful, talented, powerful Simone Biles, shout out, as the visual for us, okay? And that visual serves us well. But this year, I want to take us deeper. This year, I want to talk about what happens when we do stop performing and we start protecting. Because I want to remind y'all again, before we jump into boundaries. Boundaries are not set for other people. They are not to manipulate others, y'all. They are to protect yourself. So picture that gymnast, the amazing Simone Biles even. But now imagine she's not just balancing, but she's removing the mask that she's been wearing to please the judges. In this instance, to code switch for the crowd. Everyone except her. She's discovering that her true strength comes not from performing perfection, but from honoring her authentic limits, which we already know that she's already learned how to do. So, when we unmask this reality, here's what I've learned about boundaries in our super hyperconnected, always turned on world. They're not just helpful, but they are essential for survival. Yet, so many of us, especially those of us who've spent years wearing masks to fit in, code switch, be accepted and validated by others, we avoid setting them because of fear, maybe of rejection or failure, judgment, guilt. How dare I impose standards on people now when I haven't been this whole time? What will they think? or the belief that we have to sacrifice ourselves to be good Christians. We have to sacrifice ourselves to be good mothers and good wives and good friends and good citizens. We do not, by the way. We've been conditioned to think that saying no makes us selfish. But listen, y'all. Protecting your energy is not unkind. Others that benefit from us not setting boundaries and protecting ourselves would see it as unkind. But in reality, what are you if you don't focus on you in order to be able to provide for them? That's what other people miss, that we have to be adamant about understanding. But what if I told you that the very thing we've been avoiding, the radical act of unmasking what our true needs and limits are, because remember, we've talked about this before. A lot of us don't want to address our needs and we feel guilty about having them, so we don't articulate them. But is that actually the kindest thing that we can do for ourselves or for others? Because I don't think you will argue with me in saying that when we are better, other people are better. Life is better. Work is better. Serving others is better. Everything becomes better because you are better. So I don't want us to think of boundaries as just protection. I want us to think of it as a necessity, as a habit to develop, not punishment. When we think of boundaries, we often imagine walls, okay? I'm talking a one-woman island with electrical fences and pit bulls and Rottweilers and Doberman pinschers and a moat with a gate door that we hardly ever open for anybody. And sometimes we might open it for one or two people. Cold, impenetrable barriers that keep people out. But healthy boundaries aren't about punishment or rejection, my sister. They're about protection. So you have to change the way you look at it. Remember, if you are, in fact, a faith-believing Christian, when I say Christian, I don't just mean you believe in God, but that you believe in Jesus Christ and you believe that you are to live by his example. Okay? If that be the case, then you will remember and understand what this is supposed to look like. Okay? You can't love people behind electric fences. You can't serve people from an island surrounded by a moat. Okay? You just can't. And it's all about the condition of your heart. Everything that we do, you can do it in one of two ways. You can do it from a place of coldness, pride, ego, selfishness, and total disregard for others. Or you can do it from a place of love. Okay? I don't think I have to tell you that there are various aspects of what love is, but from a place of love, of genuine concern, of collectivity. That's something that I love about womanism, is that it's not just I am woman, hear me roar, but I am woman in the context of my community, my culture. And we need to start seeing life from that perspective. We can learn from that. Less about just us and more about the collective. Because women, we have influence and impact in men's lives, in the children, which is the next generation, the future, and also each other. That's a tall glass to fill, y'all. How are you filling it? Hiding behind such interesting, I'm going to say interesting. I was looking for a word. Interesting walls to keep people out. You just can't. You can't do it. So keep in mind the condition of your heart. Do you set boundaries to protect yourself while still being open? Or are you just shutting everyone out, period? Okay. It's all about your, again, intentions. Now, keep in mind, you don't want it to exist to hurt anyone who approaches. You want it to exist to protect what's growing on inside of you, the healing, your healing journey, okay? Your growth, your peace, your prosperity, your purpose. Without all of that protection, people come in, like the Bible said, pigs or swine trampling on pearls, tender shoots that were just planted and just sprouted the ground getting trampled, the soil getting depleted until there's nothing left to give. Empty cups, y'all. Y'all know what I'm talking about because we've all been there. So that's why you have to be mindful and intentional to set protective measures, but not to the extent where you will completely isolate yourself from the world around you. I hope that blesses somebody right now in this moment. But here's what's really challenging for those of us who've mastered the art of people pleasing. Yeah, I said it. People pleasing. Keep in mind that perfectionism is typically linked to people pleasing. We often don't even know what our authentic limits are when we are living in a space of constantly pleasing others. We've been so busy performing the role of the helpful one, or the always available one, or the never needs anything one, that we've lost touch with our actual capacity to live, to love, to grow, to heal, to prosper. Okay? Now, let me get real with you for a minute. In our digital age where we're expected to respond immediately, show up all the time, cameras on, best face forward, and maintain the appearance of having it all together, performative kindness is an epidemic. At work, quote unquote, professionalism. At church, quote unquote, holiness. Okay? We say yes to preserving an image of ourselves to avoid conflict and judgment and rejection, to maintain the mask of being low maintenance or always reliable, or here's a kicker, a team player. But here's what that false yes really costs, because guess what? There's always a cost. Ignorance is not bliss. There is always a cost. When you agree to something you don't want to do, can't realistically handle, or know will breed resentment in your heart, you're not being loving. You're being unclear. And in a world that already struggles with authentic connection, this kind of mask wearing creates even more distance. Okay? And you know what's interesting? It doesn't just happen in the natural, it also happens in the spirit. It happens emotionally and mentally. It happens in every way possible, y'all, because we are holistic creatures. All right? The key to life is congruency, that you are the same person inside and out, in every space, every place. Because God is God no matter where he is, where he goes, where he's called. Okay? The person asking doesn't get your best effort, though. They get your reluctant compliance when we carry ourselves in this way. Now, you don't get to honor your true capacity when you stay quiet, allow your frustrations to bottle up so that you can maintain the facade that everything is fine when it's not. You're not being kind to yourself. How in the world can you continue to sustain being kind to others? I'm going to let you think about that with a pause real quick, y'all. Let's talk about kindness for a second. Real kindness. The kind that builds genuine connection. And I want to point out that we're not just talking about with other people. We are so conditioned to assume that anytime we speak of something, we're speaking when it pertains to others. But I want you to know that what you give to others, you also need to be willing to give to yourself. So, what is real kindness? Real kindness is saying no, clearly, lovingly, and without apology. When something doesn't align with your values, your beliefs, your capacity, or as I tend to say, my bandwidth, or your calling and purpose. But if you don't know your values, you don't know your purpose, your calling, what your capacity is, how your energy flows naturally. If you don't know, you can align with it, okay? And that's why we burn out, because we don't know ourselves and we don't know how we can show up more effectively in this world. And that's why you need a coach like me. It is the vulnerable act of removing the mask and trusting that the other person handle your authentic truth. But then I also flip that on the other side and say, can you handle the truth about you? When you're clear about your boundaries, people know where they stand. But how can you be clear about your boundaries if you are not kind to yourself first? But once you give people a mark in the sand, then they can make informed decisions. They can decide if it's worth it to them to abide by those boundaries. They can respect your limits because you've respected them enough to share your limits. And this can create a space for authentic relationship instead of the exhausting dance of assumption and resentment. At least if you're honest, that forces them to either be honest or keep it a moving. Keep that in mind, okay? So if you want to get rid of somebody, you know somebody you need to get rid of, put a boundary and see how they respond to it. Now, remember our gymnast with her amazing, beautiful self? She didn't just wake up one day with perfect balance. She practiced. She wobbled, she fell, she got back up and tried again. And anytime I see someone with amazing balance like that, the first thing I think is core strength. Core strength, y'all, right? Yoga, Pilates. But setting boundaries, especially when you're unlearning years of people-pleasing patterns and you're discovering your authentic limits for the first time, it requires that same type of skill. You need to strengthen who you are at your core. You need to have more clarity, intention, and consistency. One, in giving yourself grace as you figure it out. And then two, allowing others grace as they begin to adjust to the authentic you. Now, you might start by setting a small boundary. For instance, for example, turning off notifications on your phone. We'll say 2100 hours, 9 o'clock. Y'all know I'm a veteran. I'm sorry. Declining that video call that could have been an email, or admitting that you actually can't take on that extra project right now. Tiny little boundary. No, with a period at the end. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. It might even feel wrong. You might worry about disappointing someone or fear that showing your limits will reveal you as an imposter. Something that you were already worried about anyway. I felt that. I know y'all felt that. That's not failure. That's the tender work of unmasking, and unmasking is uncomfortable. That's why transformation is a hard sell for a coach. A lot of people don't even want to go through the process of feeling the discomfort, but you have to go through the discomfort in order to get to the other side of being healed, whole, and show up in the world exactly who you are. So, I want you to remember, it's going to be uncomfortable, but it's not failure when you're doing what serves you instead of what does not serve you. So that's what it feels like to stop performing limitless capacity and start honoring your actual humanity. Because too many of us, especially when we're imposed with a strong Black woman trope, too many of us feel like we have to be superhumans. But we don't. And that was not God's intention for us. Boundaries are something that, like we said, are vital to self-stewardship, which makes them something important, special, necessary, and even sacred. Because then it makes you a good steward of what God has given you. He's given you life. He's given you energy. He's given you health. He's given you love. He's given you purpose. He's given you resources, influence, favor, okay? Gifts, talents, the ability to acquire skills, and the bandwidth or capacity to go through life, to handle life, and to accomplish your purpose in this world. That is sacred. Whether you see it as God-given, nature bestowed, or simply the result of your unique combination of experiences, the truth is that you have been entrusted with you. And that is precious, and that is sacred. And I don't think enough of us see ourselves, our bodies, our offerings to this world in every way as something we are entrusted with. We see it as mothers when it comes to our children, grandparents, grandchildren, professionals in their careers, our finances even. But we don't see that about ourselves. We have been entrusted with ourselves, okay? And that is something that hustle culture does not want us to remember or be aware of. Always on culture doesn't want you to know that stewardship isn't just about money, status, position, or material possessions. It's about caring for everything in your keeping, in your wheelhouse, everything in your territory, everything and everyone, starting with the person behind whatever mask you are currently wearing. Yes, I went there. I said it. We can fight if you want to square up. When you burn yourself out trying to be everything to everyone, you're not being a good steward of what you've been given. When you say yes to every request because you're afraid of being seen as difficult or challenging, you're actually diminishing your ability to use your gifts wisely and effectively. Y'all, we be hindering our own blessings. We be hindering our own effectiveness, our own efficiency in this world. What we were specifically allowed to be put here to do. My mama was a young 19, single, brand new to the world, adult world, on her own, soldier in the U.S. Army when she got pregnant with me. And this was 1978. Yes, I am aging myself. She could have had an abortion. She would have been warranted to have an abortion, but she did not. That is the gift I have been given of life. And who am I to waste that gift? Never again. You have to look at your own unique situation in the same way and realize you didn't have to be here. So why are you? Because so many others are not. True stewardship looks like radical self-honesty, which is, again, uncomfortable, at least at the beginning. Self-honesty about what you can sustainably give. It looks like unmasking your actual capacity instead of performing infinite availability. And if y'all hear my stuck-up Siamese cat in the background, I do apologize. The dog is quiet and the cat is not now. So, where do you need to practice this art of unmasking through boundary setting. Take some time to think about that this week before you go into the new week, because we're starting a new month, right? So this is another opportunity, another chance, not just every day, every week, every month, every year. We are given an opportunity to start anew, or at least to pivot in whatever way we need to. Because around these parts, we don't quit, we pivot. So I ask you, where in your life do you need to set one firm NO this week to honor your peace, prosperity, and purpose? Maybe it's that meeting that could easily be an email, or, maybe it's a habit of immediately responding to every text and notification, picking up your phone every time it makes a sound, basically. Maybe it's ignoring your reminder to stop scrolling. That's for me. I have reminders set on TikTok and Threads, because those are the two that I scroll the longest and the most. I think it's like every 10 minutes. And I can't tell you how many times I swipe it away and keep going. Like, what's the point, Nikki? So I am also growing with you, my sisters. Maybe it's finally admitting that you can't take on any extra projects. You can't be the family member who handles everything, or you can no longer maintain the facade of having it all figured out and knowing everything when actually you are struggling. It's okay. Give yourself grace, self-compassion, and that's how you develop self-love. How do you love someone you do not know? Genuinely love them. You have to get to know yourself. Fall in love with yourself again. That is the revolutionary act. Because the world that benefits off of our ignorance is going to continue to benefit until we are no longer available to be benefited off of. Okay? Now, whatever it is that you come to for this week, start there. Don't go large and grand, y'all. Baby steps are still steps forward. Start with one honest, vulnerable truth about your actual limits. Okay? Actual, authentic, realistic limits. Start small, but start authentically. In a world that wants to consume every ounce of your energy and your resources, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's revolutionary. It's a radical act of self-respect in a culture that profits from your depletion. Because how else does capitalism continue to thrive? Oh my gosh, I just watched The Matrix 1 and the most recent one back to back the other day. And just now, when I just said that, culture that profits from your depletion, I thought about how the Matrix uses human beings as batteries, as energy sources. Is that not what capitalism does in our world? That's a whole nother episode, y'all. If you want to have that conversation with me, let me know. Remember, it's choosing to show up as your authentic self instead of the version that you think everyone wants to see or everyone is expecting. It's time to switch it up, sis. It's time to switch it up. If you don't, no one else is going to either. Now, this week, I challenge you to choose clarity over obligation, authenticity over accommodation. Identify one boundary you need to set and practice the vulnerable art of a loving, honest no. Or, if you want to be even more firm, hell no. Remember, you're not just protecting your schedule, you're reclaiming your right to exist as a whole, complete person with limits and needs. The balancing beam is waiting, but this time, you're stepping up without a mask. You're seeing clearly. Your core is being strengthened day by day. Now you step with confidence, knowing that with every wobble, it is just part of learning to live unmasked with beautiful, purposeful boundaries that honor who you really are. I hope this was a blessing to someone. Your journal prompt for this week is where in your life have you confused love with self-sacrifice? Whew. Y'all, we might have to sit with that one 5 days this week. Your affirmation: my boundaries are not walls. They are sacred spaces where my worth is honored. All right. I love y'all, Sisters Unbothered, and I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye. That's it for today, Sisters Unbothered. Thank you so much. If you are a returning listener, I appreciate your support more than you could ever know. If you are new, please let me know how I can be a blessing to you on these episodes, and I hope that I am able to earn your trust. If this resonated with you, please share it with another sister who needs to hear this message. Please, because we are all out here trying to figure it out, y'all. If you would like to get connected and have access to the handouts, the teaching videos, the blog posts, the newsletter, please join Sisters Unbothered on Substack. That is substack.com/@CoachNikkiCates. And remember, your boundaries are not walls. They are sacred spaces where your worth is honored. Until next time, keep living unbothered, my sisters. Keep unmasking, even when it's uncomfortable, and keep honoring the sacred gift that is you. I'm Coach Nikki Cates, and I'll catch you on the next episode.